Good evening, everybody. This is Pranati here. Yesterday, we had spoken about our ecology class and the type of ecosystem and the structure and the functions of it, right? So today, I will start with the different kinds of biogeochemical cycles that are present. Let me share my screen with you. Perfect. Please give me a moment. I'll just. So let me recap yesterday's class. We have read about the different kinds of ecosystems that are there, the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystem. And at the same time, we have seen about the ecology, the structure and the functions of it, and what are how the ecosystem plays an important role in sustaining the environmental system, and also the functions, what are the abiotic and the biotic factors, what are marine ecosystems and terrestrial ecosystems. Today, I'm going to talk about the biogeochemical cycles. In this, you are going to see the importance of biogeochemical cycle, what exactly it is, and then at the same time, how it has a role in our environment and how the different kinds of biogeochemical cycles, in fact, play an important role and how we have got to maintain that. So when you come to biogeochemical cycles, it tells about biological, the bio in it, and the geological, different kinds of whatever elements that are present, and the chemical factors that are involved. So it's a pathway connecting both the biotic and the abiotic components of the earth. And this is a cycle that is going to occur repeatedly. So that is the definition. When you come to it, you're going to see circular pathways through which chemicals elements, including the life, sustaining elements such as protoplasm, circulate in the biosphere from environment to organisms and back to the environment. So this is known as a biogeochemical cycle. So living factors can actually be collectively known as biosphere, and all the nutrients such as the inorganic elements that are present, that is carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, all of this are used by the living organisms and they are a part of a closed system. So these are again being recycled and they are lost and they are again constantly given back by the open system, that is flow of the energy in the ecosystem. So the flow of energy in any ecosystem is known as an open system. So the planet energy, whatever you are obtaining, from the light, gets back to it. Either it is eventually lost through heat or through different kinds of trophic levels in the form of energy. So you have inorganic constituents, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur. So carbon, even hydrogen for that matter. So carbon is used by the organisms to make different kinds of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, which are major sources of energy. And at the same time, we release carbon dioxide, which is an inorganic form of giving it back to the environment. So you again have something called as a reservoir. Yes, we'll just come to it in some time. So the biogeochemical cycles describe the movements of the substances present inside the entire globe. So what are the different kinds of elements that are being circulated back and forth between the living and the non-living organisms to the environment and back? So the macronutrients are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus. And others are sulfur, potassium, calcium, iron, and magnesium. And we require small amounts of different other elements such as boron, copper, and molybdenum. And what are the different types of biogeochemical cycles that are present? They are nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, and water cycle. Excuse me. And when you term something known as a gaseous cycle, you mean the transformation of gases between different kinds of reservoirs. So what are reservoirs? So if any kind of chemical or element is present at a place for a long time, and that place is known as a reservoir. So for example, a long, what do you call it? For a long period of time, coal is present in the earth. So inside the earth or in the coal mines, whatever we have right now. So those coal mines are reservoirs of coal. And for a short amount of time, you can see certain gases when not coal exactly, but different kinds of gases. There's an exchange that is taking place between different kinds of organisms. Carbon dioxide, most major sink or the reservoir of carbon dioxide is the sea or the ocean. So when it comes to that, there is an exchange pool also taking place wherein all the living organisms and other non-living entities such as vehicles, etc., give out carbon dioxide. So there is an exchange pool also wherein all of it gets to the reservoir. So plants and animals use carbon to produce the carbohydrates, I mean fats and proteins, which is used to obtain the energy. Then it is again being sent back to the system or to the environment surrounding it through or in the form of inorganic carbon dioxide. So all the reservoirs usually are abiotic factors. Exchange pools. We are the exchange pools that we are talking about. We are biotic factors, plants and animals. We use some, then we give it back. So we are the exchange pools. So carbon, for example, is held only for a short period of time in either plants or animals as compared to a coal deposit which is lying inside the earth for years together. So what we have to also understand is the amount of time that a chemical is being present at a particular place is known as its residence time. So this is all about the reservoirs. We will again learn about the nitrogen cycle. Before that, let us just have a look at it. So we have something called as a sedimentary cycle also, which includes minerals and salts that are there in the earth's crust that is being leached away. This settles as sediment of rock and this cycle is going to be repeated. So for this sedimentary cycle, we have a phosphorus cycle, sulfur cycle, iron and calcium cycles as well. Again, it depends upon different kinds of elements that are present, but each cycle fundamentally has a sediment phase that is present and a solution phase. So when it comes to the nitrogen cycle, please give me a moment if you don't mind. So when it comes to the nitrogen cycle, nitrogen that is present in the atmosphere is converted into multiple chemical forms as it circulates amongst the atmosphere or the earth, that is the terrestrial area, and the marine ecosystems. So conversion of this is taking place by both physical and biological processes. So biological processes includes fixation, and like the important processes in the nitrogen cycle include nitrogen fixation, which is a biological process, ammonification, nitrification, and denitrification. So most of the Earth's atmosphere, which is around 78 to 80%, is nitrogen. So the majority is made up of nitrogen, but then amount of atmospheric nitrogen that is available is very less, or limited availability of nitrogen for the biological use, as it is relatively non-reactive and not exactly used by the plants. So availability of the nitrogen is playing a very important role in the ecosystem processes, including the production and the decomposition. So the nitrogen cycle is a process by which nitrogen is converted into or different forms of various chemical forms of the nitrogen. So this various chemical forms include the organic nitrogen, nitrates, nitrites, nitrous oxides, and nitric oxides also, and at the same time the inorganic nitrogen gas. So in this again, it can be a form of the living organisms, that is humus, or different kinds of intermediate products also. Organic nitrogen can be obtained. And this process from nitrogen cycle transformation is by different kinds of is done by different kinds of microbes. So the different steps in the nitrogen cycle is nitrogen fixation, that is nitrogen is converted into ammonia or ammonium oxide or the nitrites, and then the nitrification, ammonia to nitrites. Assimilation, that is incorporation of the ammonia and the nitrites to or the nitrates to what do you call it, different kinds of biologically accepted nitrites or nitrates. Then the assimilation, incorporation of ammonia and nitrates into the biological tissues, and then ammonification, that is organic nitrogen compounds is finally converted into ammonia. And then the final product is denitrification, wherein the nitrites, nitrates are again converted back to the nitrogen. So what exactly is nitrogen fixation? So whatever amount of nitrates or nitrites or nitrogen that is present inside the atmosphere should be taken up by the plants. And this is done by free living, such as, Azotobacter or Clostridium, or symbiotic in a symbiotic form. This is known as the diazotrophs. So you have symbiotic nitrogen fixation and non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation. So we are talking about conversion of nitrogen gas into nitrates and nitrites through atmosphere, industrial and biological processes, and this is known as nitrogen fixation. So absorption of nitrates or ammonium ions is via root hairs. So if nitrate is absorbed, then it is going to be reduced to nitrite or ammonium ions for it to be incorporated into the amino acids or the nucleic acids or the chlorophyll, wherein every place you have a nitrogen necessity. So in plants, there is a symbiotic relationship with rhizobium. And so they live in the root nodules of the leguminous plants, your beans, peas, and they form a mutualistic relationship. And this helps in production of ammonia, and this is in exchange of or for carbohydrates. So about 30% of the total, nitrogen is being fixed in this particular way. That is the Haber-Bosch process, as seen, wherein it uses high temperature pressure, wherein nitrogen gas and hydrogen source form ammonia. Again, enzymes involved in this particular process are the glutamine synthetase, that is in the cytosol and the plastic. And then you have the glutamine 2-oxoglutarate aminotransferase, that is the ferredoxin, and it is an NADH dependent process. And then you have the glutamine dehydrogenase enzymes that are present. You can always refer your textbook for that matter. And yes, so now conversion is being done by soil living bacteria and other nitrifying bacteria that is present. So you have different kinds of nitrosomal species, example Nitrobacter, and this is responsible for the oxidation of nitrites into nitrates. Nitrates get reduced to nitrites, whereas when nitrites are converted into nitrates, the process is known as oxidation. Ammonia is not exactly viable for the plants because it is toxic. So it has to be converted into nitrites and nitrates for the plant to absorb the nitrogen. So this is the equation that is present in biological nitrogen fixation. Ammonia plus 8 protons plus 8 electrons plus 16 molecules of ATP gives 2 molecules of ammonia plus hydrogen plus 16 molecules of ADP. N number of ATP, or for example, always 8 ATP gives back to 8 ADP. 16 ATP gives rise to 16 ADP. This also can be written as half nitrogen plus 4 protons plus 4 electrons plus 8 ATP is equal to 1 molecule of ammonia plus half molecule of hydrogen plus 8 ADP that is being released. So when we talk about the denitrification process, again, what is happening is reduction of the nitrates into nitrogen gas. So this completes the nitrogen cycle, wherein denitrifying bacteria use the nitrates in the soil so that there is respiration occurring, because of which nitrogen gas is again produced, and this is put back into the atmospheric, that is, in the gaseous form. So this nitrate reduction to ammonium or the nitrate or nitrite ammonification is an anaerobic, where oxygen is not utilized at all. So anaerobic respiration process. And so in this anaerobic ammonia, oxidation occurs. It's a biological process again. So nitrites ammonia is converted into the molecular nitrogen gas. So this whole thing is known as the nitrogen cycle. So we have seen the conversion of ammonia to nitrate by nitrifying bacteria, and you have nitrosomonas species that can convert the ammonia to nitrites. Then nitrobacter for oxidation of nitrite to nitrates. So again, assimilation is taking place inside the roots. It goes up. You can use the ammonia or the nitrogen, which is necessary for amino acids, nucleic acids, and chlorophyll. So this is about the nitrogen cycle. So you have ammonification also. I just don't want to get into the details. You can just see mineralization. So you have this different kinds of enzymes that are present. And you have the process of denitrification, that is reduction of the nitrates back into inert nitrogen gas, completing the nitrogen cycle. Again, performed by Pseudomonas and Clostridium in anaerobic conditions. So it happens in waterlogged soil where there is no oxygen source, and the reaction is nitrates to nitrites to nitric oxide to nitrous to nitrogen gas. So this is the nitrogen cycle that we are talking about. You can just have a look. Nitrogen fixation, radiole like root nodules, and then you have nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil to ammonium to nitrifying bacteria, nitrates, and you have again, this is in the atmosphere. Then the amino acids, proteins in the plants get decomposed and forms the ammonium ions. Now, ecological function is nitrogen is necessary for all the forms known on the earth and component of both RNA, DNA, amino acids, chlorophyll. So it is necessary to convert the gaseous nitrogen into compounds such as nitrates and ammonia. Again, uses of nitrogen, you can just see nitric acid, nylon, dyes, and explosives. And it is also used in the CPUs. And you have the use of nitrogen in X-ray detectors and in cryopreservation. Now, let us just have a look at the phosphorus cycle that is present. In this, it is one of the slowest biological or biogeochemical cycles that is present, which is being done by the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and the biosphere. So over here, it does not, atmosphere does not play a significant role in the movement of phosphorus because they're usually solids at normal temperature present on the earth and at a normal pressure found on the earth. So you have low concentrations of phosphorus in soils that reduce the plant growth and soil microbial growth. So unlike other cycles, phosphorus cannot be found in the air as a gas except under extremely reducing conditions, and that too it is found only in the form of phosphine. So what exactly happens in the phosphorus cycle? We'll just see. So there is a phosphate which is present in rocks and minerals. Most common mineral of phosphorus origin is known as the apatite. So gradual erosion or leaching keeps taking place, and rain also plays an important role over here. Weathering of all the rocks takes place. So what happens is phosphorus is released in the soluble form. This is taken up by the plants and it is again transformed into organic compounds. And plants may then be consumed by these herbivores. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry about that. So this organic phosphate is then taken up by the plants and transformed into the organic compounds. This is consumed, that is when once it gets into the plants, this is consumed by the herbivores and it is either incorporated or absorbed by the tissues, and then it can also be excreted out. So whatever that is there, it is then, once it is consumed by herbivores, even the carnivores, the phosphorus, whatever is present, is going to be taken up by them. And once there is the death of the animal or the particular plant, then this particular phosphorus is going to be decayed, returned back to the soil, and again converted back into insoluble compounds. And some of it might go back into the ocean. So what are the different kind of steps that are present in the phosphorus cycle? You can see that phosphate is released by the erosion of rocks, and different kinds of the primary producers, that is plants and the fungi, take up the phosphate with the help of the roots. Absorption is going on over there. And this is going to go from the producers to the primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary, quaternary consumers through the food chain. And also at the same time, phosphorus might seep into groundwater through erosion again. And once it goes into the consumers, what will happen is once the death of the consumers takes place, it will go back into the soil again and be converted into the inorganic form. So, and at the same time, appetite, for example, whenever there is a rock erosion, the cycle begins again. So this is how the cycle of phosphorus takes place. You have phosphates in the rock, and then because of which it goes into the soil in organic form, and then in solution, that is and then it is precipitated as phosphates, rocks, and then come back to this is the inorganic. Whereas in the organic compounds, you have the animals that are present, absorption of phosphate by the plants, and detritus, that is decaying of the plants. And then animals consume the plants, primary, secondary, tertiary, doesn't matter. So then it is again death, decaying, or the whatever waste released by the plants or the animals, that is the consumers, treated by the detritus and the detrivores in the soil, decomposition, and gives back to the inorganic phosphate. So this is the phosphorus cycle that is present. Again, what is the ecological function? Now, phosphorus is a very important nutrient present in the soil, soil, which is necessary for both plants and animals. So, phosphates do not enter into the atmosphere, and it remains mostly on the land in the form of rock or the soil minerals. And whatever is mined is used to make fertilizers. Because phosphate from the fertilizers, sewage can also cause pollution in the lakes or streams, and after the death and decay of the organisms, it leads to eutrophication. That is present only in the freshwaters. Now, most abundantly, it is available as orthophosphate, that is PO4 minus 3. And in the land, in the form of the phosphorus. So what is the biological importance of phosphorus? If you get to see that, phosphorus is made up of phosphates, is present in nucleotides, main source of energy, that is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So we need phosphate for energy. And when it is linked together, DNA, deoxyribonucleotide phosphates. Again, you have phosphates in DNA and RNA. The double-stranded helix of the two strands of DNA has phosphodiester bonds. That forms the helical, or that forms the helix. So apart from this, we also have in the enamel of our teeth, and at the same time we need the bones are made up of calcium phosphate, and you also need a hydroxyl apatite, from which you get the calcium phosphate. And it is also present on the exoskeleton of different kinds of insects, and also in the phospholipids. The phospholipid bilayer is present on every cell membrane. So you need phosphorus over there as well. What are the other different uses of phosphorus? Catches fire easily. So again, so you use red phosphorus in the matches. White phosphorus zinc as poison for different kinds of rodents and in making different kinds of bombs, tracer bullets, and phosphorus is a part of our Diwali firecrackers because it catches fire easily, and different kinds of soluble phosphates are used to remove the metal salts from the water. So it acts as a like filtering or the separating agent, in fact. So please give me a moment. Let me see if I've got the other cycles. In fact, I'll stop sharing right now. And so when it comes to the other cycles, we also have the carbon cycle and the oxygen cycle that is present, right? So we'll just have a look at them as well and then go for the next lesson. Right. Let me just, start off with the oxygen cycle at the same time and the carbon cycle. We have the carbon cycle with us, right? So I'll just start with that. I'm unable to get that particular PowerPoint right now. So when it comes to the carbon cycle, carbon is one element which is completely all the time being present everywhere, exchanged everywhere in the whole wide world, be it through the biosphere, the pedosphere, the geosphere, the hydrosphere, and the atmosphere. So it's a main component in all the what do you call it, biological compounds, and at the same time, it is present in almost all the chemical, all the uh, minerals for that matter. You have limestone, you have different kinds of coal, for example. So organic, inorganic compounds is made up of carbon. So when it comes to that, let us just have a look at it if it's possible. I have the water cycle ready, right? Yes. Just try to share this particular video. Yes. So, right. So when it comes to the carbon cycle, you just can see that, it was initially discovered that carbon was also being cycled back from the source atmospheric carbon dioxide, organic, inorganic, you name it, by two different scientists, Joseph Priestley and Lavoisier. And it was popularized by another scientist, namely Humphrey Davy. So different kinds of reservoirs are there for carbon and they are interconnected. So you have the atmosphere having the most amount of carbon dioxide that is present and the oceans, biggest sink. You have the terrestrial biosphere, the ocean. So you have dissolved inorganic, carbon, living and non-living, marine biota, all having carbon within themselves. You have the fossil sediments, freshwater ecosystem and non-living organic material, all of them having the carbon within there. And also the earth's mantle, crust, core, all of them are having inorganic carbon. So there is a carbon exchange taking place between different kinds of reservoirs. This is by either physical, chemical, geological, or biological processes. Physical erosion of soil, etc., and chemical by conversion or by all the forest fuels and all that. And so this is burning of fossil fuels. This is a chemical way wherein carbon is being exchanged. Geological by erosion and leaching and all of this comes under the geological processes. And biological processes, photosynthesis, respiration, then decaying and decomposition of any kind of organic matter. So because of which you have carbon being exchanged. When it comes to the atmosphere, it's in the most two different forms, that is carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon dioxide being the most highest amount that is present. So they absorb gases and retain the heat. So that is why we have something called as global warming, because of the absorption of carbon, heat, and the ability of these two gases, carbon dioxide and methane, which are known as greenhouse gases. They cause retaining of the heat, and they cause this global warming. And methane produces this greenhouse effect per volume as compared to the carbon dioxide. But then presence of methane is at a much lower concentration, and it does not exist for more time or longer time as compared to the carbon dioxide. So again, carbon dioxide is being removed from the atmosphere through two means: photosynthesis and this enters into the terrestrial and the ocean biosphere. This is the primary mode wherein atmospheric carbon dioxide is removed and entered into the biosphere. And it is also seen that it dissolves directly from the atmosphere into the water bodies, also by precipitation. So when dissolved in the water, it reacts with the water molecules and it forms acid. Water plus carbon dioxide, you have carbonic acid that is being formed. At the same time, rocks absorb this carbon dioxide through a process which is known as weathering, because of which there is acidification taking place, and all of this again goes back into the ocean sinks. And at the same time, as human beings, we have made it a very important, in a way that we are adding a lot of carbon dioxide to, different sources of it, or to the different environment, to the reservoirs. We burn fossil fuels, then we start manufacturing buildings. All of this adds to the carbon load. When it comes to the terrestrial biosphere, it includes all the organic carbon in the land-living organisms, both dead and alive. So carbon is stored in such form. And it leaves the terrestrial biosphere in different ways, and only through different time scales, that is. So it can totally stay in the soil for thousands of years in the form of coal, for example, or it can be washed into the rivers by erosion and then goes into the atmosphere through soil respiration. So this process has increased by almost 0.1% per year, and totally right now, total amount of carbon dioxide released by the soil is around roughly 98 billion tons, and this is 10 times more carbons than human beings are putting into the atmosphere each year by burning fossil fuel. So we are using more, and at the same time we are releasing more of carbon, which is not really good. Oceans are the biggest sinks, and what happens is atmospheric carbon dioxide gets dissolved and forms the carbonic acid, and a small fraction of it, but at the same time a lot of carbon dioxide gets dissolved into the oceans, enters as dissolved organic compound, and then it is converted by different kinds of organisms into the organic forms through either photosynthesis, and it goes into the food chain. Now, it circulates for a long period of time before it becomes a sedimented form through a thermohaline circulation. So there is a basicity in the oceans, that is around the pH is around more of basic, so 8.2. So carbon dioxide acidification shifts the pH balance of the ocean towards being neutral. which is actually a good way. So oceanic absorption of the carbon dioxide is very important for the carbon to be sequestered, so that this helps in the balancing of the human caused rise in the atmospheric carbon dioxide. Now, Earth's crust, mantle, and core also has a certain amount of carbon dioxide in it, or carbon in it. So most of the Earth's carbon is present in the lithosphere, and this is stored in the Earth's mantle, from where the Earth is formed basically. And then others is deposited in the form of organic compound from the biosphere. So it can again leave in the same way. You can just have a look at the picture that is present, and then there is a direct extraction of kerogens, that is fossil fuels that are being released, and this is burned to release energy. Again, they give back to the atmospheric carbon dioxide reservoir. Human activity. Again, we humans play a spoil sport in everything. So industrial revolution has led to a tremendous amount of release of carbon into the atmosphere. At the same time, we release carbon dioxide uh, inadvertently because of deforestation. And industrial process of cement releases carbon dioxide in the air. Deforestation removes the forests, which actually hold or take in a lot of carbon that is present, because of which there is a lot of carbon that is being added to the atmosphere, because of which there is global warming. So this is all about the carbon dioxide and the carbon cycle as such. So air pollution damages plants, soils, and now you know the Delhi air condition. In fact, they are giving holidays for the children, so that they can stay at home, so that it reduces the amount of pollutants that are being released into the air, so that at least a little bit of air pollution is being countered. So carbon, methane play an important role in this, because they happen to be the greenhouse gases as well. Anyway, so this is about the carbon cycle. When it comes to the water cycle, we have, this is also known as the hydrological or the hydrologic cycle. So continuous movement of water up and down, above or below the surface of the earth. You can just see respiration. We all require a respiration. We drink water, that is consume water, and whatever amount is there, there is a little bit of water that is coming out of our systems also. And at the same time, plants take in water, absorb through the roots, and then they transpire it out. So there's a little bit of transpiration occurring, and at the same time, water goes into the atmosphere in the form of evaporation. So evaporation, because of which there is the water is turned into the water vapor. Then it becomes there is a process called condensation, water vapor turning into water again. So again, precipitation, and you have infiltration of the water that is present, which comes into the earth again. So this whole water cycle involves a lot of exchange of energy, leading to different kinds of temperature changes. Evaporation of water. So there is again energy transfer from the surroundings, and whenever there is evaporation, there is a cooling of the environment that is taking place. And condensation again releases the energy, because of which there is environment that is becoming warm. So this heat exchange, whatever is taking evaporation and condensation, is actually influencing the climate as well. And all of this, through this method, say for example, evaporation and condensation, through the evaporation at least, you have purified or purification of the water that is taking place. And that is how you have fresh water being replenished across the globe. So this is one of the major features that is happening, because whatever amount of water is there from the ocean, we cannot consume the oceanic water. So through evaporation, purification, this condensation and rainfall, precipitation, whatever is taking place, this is converted into fresh water, because of which we are able to consume that fresh water. And also at the same time, water molecules, hydrogen has a smaller mass than the atmospheric nitrogen, oxygen. So it is less dense. So difference in this density buoyancy makes the air more humid and then causes air pressure to decrease, temperature to drop. Lower temperature causes water vapor to condense and form tiny water droplets. And this is heavier than the air. So this falls down onto the earth, which is supported by an updraft, which is the warmer air going up and the cooler air confluence. So this concentration of this water droplets in a large space forms the clouds. And when the condensation is at the ground level, and then it is known as the fog. So this circulation moves the water vapor where cloud particles collide, grow, then they fall onto the upper atmospheric layers through precipitation. This either falls as snow or hail or sleet, and then this is what gets accumulated on as ice or ice caps and the glaciers. So you have water that is being stored for thousands of years. This again falls onto the land as rain. So you have water vapor being coming onto the ground as surface runoff. So this is what happens in the water cycle basically. And this affects on the, it plays a very important role on climate as well. And whenever water goes into the ground, you can either have it causing, finally ends up in the rivers and the oceans. But before that, it sinks into the water, becomes our groundwater storage area basically, or it gets percolation and then finally it goes into the oceans. Right. Again, water cycle is, helped by the solar energy, and evaporation plays an important role. And again, it plays an important role in the climates, as we have already seen. So this is all about the effects of geochemical cycling that is present, and the flow of the water beneath and above, and how it is being converted into water, water vapor, and back to water again. So this is all about the living factors that are present, that is the biosphere, different kinds of nutrients that are present, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, and then how exactly each and every element that is present, that is the nutrients, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and the phosphorus are being helpful to us or harmful for us basically, and how deforestation actually is detrimental for the whole environment as such, how increasing and decreasing levels of nitrogen and different kinds of gases are actually harmful for us, and then at the same time how water cycle is powered, that is it is actually helped by the solar energy, and this helps in the greenhouse effect as well, and at the same time helps in regulation of the climate. So this is about the water cycle. Now let us just have a look at the community structure, the different kinds of dynamics, what exactly is population ecology and energy flow. Now we all know that there are different kinds of food chains and ecological factors that are influencing the ecosystem. Both abiotic and biotic factors are there, and then you have the temperature, water, light, such kind of factors, which are the abiotic environmental factors and playing a role. And biotic factors include the different kinds of all the living organisms that are present. So in ecology, we have something called as the energy flow or the calorific flow. Refers to the flow of energy in a food chain. So this is also where we consider the ecological energetics. So in this, we get the energy from the sun, and this is fixed by the primary producers. Yes. So you have the primary producers. So they in turn are giving the energy to the secondary or the primary consumers, which are the heterotrophs and the herbivores, and finally to the tertiary consumers, the top, right? So this is how energy is lost as heat till the top of the pyramid. Most amount of energy is actually present in the trophic level, which is the primary consumer's level. And this energy is either stored through digestion in the form of ATPs, and it is lost through respiration. So a part of the energy from the plants is actually received by the primary consumers, secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers. And this is converted to body heat, that is respiration, again given back to the system basically. So loss of energy through the body heat is more seen in the warm-blooded animals. And therefore, that is the reason why the warm-blooded animals, or the homeotherms require more energy and should frequently eat or consume energy or food for that matter, as compared to the cold-blooded creatures, that is the invertebrates and the fishes. So energy loss is also seen in the form of undigested food by excretion or regurgitation, that is vomiting. So again, secondary consumers, that is carnivores and omnivores, have to consume more than the primary consumers. And energy stored for growth, storage, this is again seen in the secondary consumers, and it is lost through digestion as well. Conversion of energy into ATP, and here again some energy is lost. And finally, the tertiary consumers, whoever are there, have to consume the secondary consumers. So energy is lost in some and passed on through some. And finally, decomposers are present at every level, and they have to break down the organic matter of the plants and animals and excreta. And again, energy is released into the soil, and release of nutrients into the soil is taking place, so that again all this is available for the plants, which are the primary producers. So saprotrophic bacteria and fungi are the decomposers that are present, and they play an important role in the nitrogen and the carbon cycles. Now, when it comes to the different ecological factors that are present, we will just have a look at it. Let me share the appropriate PowerPoint if possible. Anyway, so when it comes to the environment, you get to see that the environment is actually having many factors that are and it is an influence of both the biotic and the abiotic factors. So again, abiotic factors are of two types, that is the physical factors and the chemical factors, that is the nutrients that are present. So when it comes to that, you get to see that the temperature is one of the most important physicochemical, abiotic, and ecological factor, which is limiting in many, species for growth and distribution of any kind of organism. So because of temperature, the animals themselves are divided or known as the homeotherms and the poikilotherms. Homeotherms being the ones which are warm-blooded, poikilotherms which are the cold-blooded creatures. So they are their temperature is being regulated according to the environmental conditions surrounding them. Example are the fishes. We all come under the homeotherms, wherein our temperature is not regulated according to the temperature. Our body temperature is not regulated by the temperature that we live in. Instead, we have a hypothalamus. We have an organ inside our body which actually regulates our core body temperature. So, because of which, this is playing an important role. And you also have homeotherms or heterotherms. For example, that is the mouse and the polar bears and the different kinds of bears, certain other organisms that either sleep or hibernate according to the change in temperature. There are certain fish which undergo aestivation. That is, when it is cold summer and there is no amount of water available and there is no, when the temperature increases, they start they go into the ground and they are able to live for a period of time without any kind of food and oxygen available. At the same time, bears and other creatures, they sleep throughout the period of winter wherein the temperatures are too harsh for them to bear because of the extreme cold conditions wherein food availability also becomes minimum. And hummingbird becomes nocturnal in the hot weathers. So what happens is, because it is extremely hot everywhere, like during the daytime, the hummingbird actually starts coming out and goes for food forage during the night times. So what is the temperature effect of temperature on the animals? When it comes to that, it the temperature affects the metabolism of the animals. That is, um, what happens is, again, the this is done by the uh, 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 regulation of enzymes, basically, wherein increase in the temperature up to a certain limit increases enzyme activity. After that, because of that, it causes an increase in the metabolic rate. And then at the same time, after that, there is a stoppage in that, and it's the enzyme degradation occurs. So from 17 to 48 degrees Celsius, you have enzyme activity increasing. After that, it forms a plateau, and then the enzyme activity decreases. And you have a law called as Van 't Hoff's law, wherein there is an increase in temperature by 10 degrees Celsius, which causes 2 to 3-fold increase in the rate of any kind of biological process. So this is one thing. When it comes to development, so you have chironomid flies and different other organisms such as Metrosinemus herticollis, which is able to finish or complete a generation, that is from egg to larva to pupa to the adult, in around 26 days at the temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius. And if the temperature is decreased to 10 degrees Celsius, it takes more amount of time for it to complete a generation or a life cycle. So larvae of the terrestrial species need more temperatures as as compared to the adults. When it comes to the growth also, in case the temperature is more warm by 10 degrees Celsius, certain fish such as trouts do not grow. And also at the same time, oysters, they give us pearls. They increase from 1.4 millimeters to 10.3 millimeters if there is a temperature increase from 10 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius. So there is an increase in the metabolic activity that you get to see. Also, the morphology changes according to the temperature change. So in warm, humid conditions, insects, birds, certain mammals, that is milk-giving organisms, they have darker body pigmentation as compared to those which are living in the cool, dry climates. Mammals, we don't have to go, the human beings, those who are living at darker, what do you call it, at a more warmer place. For example, those people who are living in Africa have a darker skin color as compared to those who are living in the Arctic regions or in the colder climates. This is because of the development of melanin, which is present more in the case of the people who are living near the equators or in the hotter countries as compared to those who are living in the colder countries. Simple. This phenomenon is called as a Globus Rule. And again, animals living in cool, dry climates such as the polar region are paler in color as compared to those that are living in the warmer climates. At the same time, it can also affect the relative size of the body parts. So those foxes or wolves that are present in the colder region have smaller, what do you call it, ears as compared to those that are living in the warmer regions. And those birds and mammals living in colder regions have a greater body size as compared to those in the warmer regions. So this is known as the Bergman's rule. And you have example is the penguins. That is what, like I told you, extremities such as tail, the snout, the ears, the legs become shorter in the colder regions. This particular rule is known as the Allen's rule. And mice that are present at around 31 degrees Celsius have longer tails than those that are present or reared in lesser temperature. This temperature influence is seen in fishes also, and they obey something which is known as the Jordan's rules. These rules, the Allen's rules, the Bergman's rule, that is the body body size, then extremities, that is the Allen's rule, and then number of vertebrae that are present in certain species of fish differs according to the temperature that they are present in. For example, whenever there are fish that are present in 4 to 8 degrees Celsius, they have only 56 vertebrae, while species that are present in temperatures of around 10 to 11 degrees Celsius have only 54 vertebrae. So number of vertebrae changes according to the temperature that the fish that are present in the temperature conditions. So this is known as the Jordan's rule. So these rules are important, and you can just have remember them because they play an important role whenever you have got to remember anything about the temperature and its effect on the different kinds of organisms. At the same time, you have seasonal changes. I will stop after another 2 minutes. I will just try to finish the adaptations to the temperature and then stop. And the rest of the class will be dealt whenever the next class is there. So another 5 minutes, please. When it comes to the relationship between the different kinds of changes in the body, this can be explained by cyclomorphosis. Most common example is the cladoceran, which is Daphnia. So what happens is, size of the helmet or the head, there is a head projection for this particular creature. This changes according to the temperature. So what happens in winter? Winter, the head is round in shape. Spring, it develops like a helmet-like projection, with maximum size of this helmet-like projection being obtained in the summer. During autumn, again, it becomes smaller in size and completely disappears, and the head becomes circular or round in shape in the winter again. So this is what happens, and this is known as cyclomorphosis. So there is a temperature and morphological change relationship that is being observed over here. Now, how do we adapt to the different kinds of temperatures that we live in? We switch on the ACs in the summer, or else we switch on the heaters in the winter. This is what we do. Wear cold clothes. We wear clothes that help us protect from the cold, or else we wear clothes which are very light and help the respiration and the perspiration to go on very easily. So we wear very light clothes during the summer. Switch on keep ourselves hydrated. These are one of the adaptations that we follow. But what about the animals? Animals become dormant, some of them at least, and this is known as hibernation, wherein overall metabolism of the animal is reduced. So it is also known as winter sleep. So many cold-blooded creatures or poikilotherms also sleep during the winter in cracks, in different kinds of holes or crevices, or in the mud. Homeotherms, that is the warm-blooded creatures, during hibernation, what happens is body temperature, metabolism, respiration, heartbeat, all of them come down to a minimal only for survival. This low activity, animal derives the energy from the organic reserves that are already present in its body. That is stored glucose, stored glycogen, which is converted into energy that is available for the creature to live. So this is a slow activity, and the animal derives energy from the organic reserves, like I already told you. Frogs Toads, again, a frog family or toad family. Hedgehogs, bats, some of the rodents, they all undergo hibernation. So, lowering of the body temperature accompanied by sleep. Even when we have hypothermia, we tend to go to sleep. So, it is first induced by cold environment, later regulated by different kinds of internal hormones. We also have estivation, which is the summer sleep, wherein what happens is to avoid the excess amount of heat in the summer, the creatures, the animals go to sleep. It's only seen in certain invertebrates, certain fishes, and in some mammals. So, what are the insects that follow estivation or the summer sleep? They are the heteropteran bugs, snails, Areophata, certain fishes that are present, and then you have insects undergoing something called as diapause, which is a condition wherein the growth of the animal and the development of the animal comes to a stop for that particular point of time. So this was coined by a scientist named Wheeler in the year 1893. So pink bollworm of cotton, it's one particular worm which undergoes diapausing during winter. In animals also, you have thermal migration. So certain birds, for example, most common examples, you have, they go from colder regions to warmer regions. In fact, they come from we have the Siberian crane that comes to the Chilka Lake, for example, in Orissa. It comes from Siberia, the colder Russian area, Russia. It comes to the warmer region, which is India, and stays here at least for the summertime, for the winter time to go on. So this is one example. So ground squirrels do not move out, and this avoids severity of the temperature. You have other frogs, turtles, and other amphibians. I will just conclude the class in 2 minutes more. Please bear with me. So they come out of the water, they get into the water just to either keep themselves cool or to keep themselves warm. Other fish and aquatic animals leave the shore and then migrate to deeper waters so as to avoid the low temperatures that are present on the surfaces. At wherever there is deeper water, the temperature is more or less constant. Yes, it is at the lower level, but it is more or less constant, which can be borne. Whereas the temperature near the surface is much more colder when we are talking about the winter season. Insects also migrate from north to south, and then you can see the migration exhibited by the birds. Most common example. In addition to the temperature, factors like food, breeding, climates, hormones, all of it are also responsible for the migration. I will talk about the light and the other water and other factors in the next class, and along with the population ecology. So thank you so much. You can all leave now. All right. Thank you. So that's what you can all leave now. I hope you have understood the class. So you can leave, and whenever there is the next class, I will talk about the population ecology and hopefully be a little more quicker and finish the topics. Thank you.